Welcome to Practical Talk Time. I'm Sandy Wrobel, your host for the show. We have Anjie Cho back with us, and she's going to be talking primarily about commercial feng shui. She is an architect and very enjoyable person to listen to. I've learned a lot in the last show. I hope you have. And we're going to continue talking about it, but with a little bit of an emphasis on commercial. Thank you very much for coming back.
Thank you so much.
I'm really enjoying speaking with you and listening to what you have to say. Now, feng shui is used not only for residents, but it's also used in commercial property.
Yes, it is. There's business feng shui and there's feng shui for commercial work as well.
Oh, there's a difference between business and commercial.
Well, because there's different types of commercial spaces. For instance, like a yoga, well, it depends. There's different kinds of spaces, and I think business feng shui would maybe be more geared towards, financial prosperity.
Oh, okay. So if someone has a commercial building, they might want to use both?
Yes, they might want to use it for the building, or they might want to use it for their business, or they might want to combine both. So the business feng shui would just look specifically at improving. We could look at when the business was incorporated, the intentions of the business, the goals of the business, and then, of course, we would look at how it manifests itself in the space, but then you can just look at the feng shui of a commercial space as well, maybe like one that doesn't have a tenant in it yet, and see how that works as well.
Mm-hmm. Now, if people are doing a business, normally whoever has the business is responsible for fixing the inside, for decorating, or I guess you wouldn't call it decorating. I don't know what you would call it. Is there a special name?
For the renovation.
Mm-hmm.
It depends. Sometimes now, it depends on how the economy is, but when the economy isn't so good, sometimes the landlords pay for the renovations, and then, I'm doing a business right now, and I think the landlord is going to reimburse a large portion of the renovation. But when the economy is better, and people want the office space, then the market changes a little bit, and the tenants are then responsible for the build-outs.
Oh, I didn't realize that. It makes sense, but I had always heard it was the tenant's responsibility for commercial space.
Yeah, it depends.
So let's pretend somebody wants to open a business, and do you? I guess it would be dependent upon when they contact you. But would it be better for them to contact you before they even rent a space?
Ideally, it's always best to get a feng shui opinion in as soon as possible. And, most feng shui is remedial, but if you can get in the beginning, it's always better. And, but you can include it in at any time, because most people end up looking towards feng shui when they're having issues and problems. For instance, I did feng shui for a restaurant, and they were having a lot of issues. They were actually in an area in Chinatown in New York where a lot of murders in the early 1900s happened in that area. It was very had a bad history, and then in turn, that owner was having difficulties with his landlord, and a lot of flooding and a lot of water issues, and business was very poor. So I think as a last resort, he tried all the what we call mundane things. He tried to smooth things over with the landlord himself. He tried to, they also had problems opening up the restaurant. He tried to get all the permits done with the city as best he could, and they tried to, fix all the leaks, but it just kept coming. So finally he was like, okay, I give up. Let's try something. We're willing to try anything. So they tried feng shui, and actually I saw him, he's not Chinese, but I saw him at Chinese New Year actually. And he was like, thank you so much. It's like, we have, business is boomed, and we don't have any water issues anymore. And I think things with the landlord are probably still bad, but I think they're not being as aggressively negative towards him anymore.
Now, can you be a little more specific as to what you actually had him do?
Well, there are a lot of issues with the space. I think one of the issues, there's some things I can't speak about, but we did a lot of space clearing. So that's when you look at, when you go into, sometimes you go into a space and you're like, something's doesn't feel right here. Mm-hmm. Especially when you're looking for a new business space or a new home, most people will go in and know right away, no. Or you say, yes, I like this right away. It
feeling.
Happens. Yeah, it happens in a few seconds. Mm-hmm. Everyone can agree with that.
Right.
So sometimes it's because of the predecessor energy, like who was there before. And we were talking about this earlier. There are some businesses, they always, there's always a new business there every year.
Right. They can't make a go of it.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. And the one is probably the location and the feng shui of the location. There might be other issues involved. And there's also all that predecessor energy from the previous owners that stays and it affects you. Okay. So we did some space clearing.
Now, what do you do for space clearing?
For that project, we actually did a blessing on the space, and we used, what did we use? We used some special minerals and chanted mantras, and formally blessed the space. And also we did something where we sealed all the openings to the space, like the doors and the pipes, so that negative energy couldn't come in. And then we also looked at, adding more flexibility to space to make it more of a welcome environment.
Because I'm sure some people listening to this would think, that's a crazy thing they're talking about. So I think it's interesting to hear about someone that you worked with that actually had a problem with their business, and you were able to remediate a lot of it.
Yes. And yes, it absolutely works. I mean, I use feng shui for my business too. I started my business 4 years ago, and it's absolutely helped me in my business. I actually just went for an interview for a big corporation that's looking at possibly using feng shui, and they asked me some interesting questions that people might have thought of as well here. Some of the people watching this show, they asked me, what if we have a great design team? Great architect, great, engineers, great contractor, great people managing the project. Why do we need feng shui? And because a lot of people say a lot of feng shui is common sense. She's like, why do we need feng shui? And I said, well, there's a lot of feng shui that is common sense, where, about how to position yourself in a room. But there's a lot of things that we just really don't understand anymore, or we're not in touch with anymore. So a lot of feng shui is based on very intuitive principles, like how to position yourself in a space. For instance, it's called the command position, and it looks at how to position yourself, like in business feng shui, how to position your desk in a room, how to position the CEO or the boss in the space, how to position the receptionist, and there's specific ways that you position people so they don't feel stress, they don't feel that they could be surprised, they feel relaxed so they can do the best work that they can. And also, for instance, for the boss, that they're in a place where they're in the power position of the workplace. So for instance, where would the mafia boss sit in a restaurant? He would sit where? The back of the restaurant.
In the corner somewhere hidden.
Yes, not in the hidden, but he'd be in the corner somewhere with the wall behind him, not in line with the door, right? Because someone could come in and shoot him or something, right? If they just came in the door. But he could see everything that's going on. And that's really one of the main principles of feng shui, where you position yourself in the command position so you're not right in line with the door, and you're close to a wall, like we're pretty much in command position here. And you have full view of the room. And that works in two different ways. in like a psychological way and also like a physical way, when your back is facing the door, your old mind is feels under stress. It only knows fight or flight. And so when you can't see the door, you're under the subtle level of stress because you don't know who can come in behind you. Like I had my table set up when I wasn't in command, and my husband came into the room, and I was scared half to death because I didn't hear him come in, and he says hi, and I was totally shocked. So because I wasn't in command the whole time I was working, I was actually under a subtle level of stress too, because when you can't see what's coming in, if someone can come up behind you and the back of your neck is a very delicate place. So you want to keep that protected. So that's kind of like common sense, right? To want to protect yourself and to be able to see what's coming to you. And the metaphor is also that you can see everything that's coming into your life, and you're open to all the opportunities, and you're not scared to look at what can come towards you.
I remember I have several books on Feng Shui, not that I read them all, but I know that they said for the bedroom too that you should be facing the door.
Yes.
And then someone said to me, well, they heard that your bed should be, the headboard should be facing east. Well, that might be then not looking at the door.
Well, okay, so this is where people get really confused with Feng Shui books, is because there are so many different types of Feng Shui and different schools of Feng Shui. And the schools of Feng Shui that say to face the door aren't necessarily the same schools that say your head should be on the east side. So they actually do the information conflicts because they're not coming from the same place.
And what about a window versus a solid wall behind you?
It's better to have a solid wall behind you. If you're not on the ground floor, the window's okay. And I think it's better to have your head against the window as long as you're in the command position. So
watching the door.
Yes. So the command position is very important for your desk, which represents your career, your bed, which represents you because you spend a lot of passive time in bed, and also your stove. But for business and commercial Feng Shui, it's really about, like, for instance, where the cash wrap is, or the cash register is, or where the boss is sitting in the room, or whoever's in charge should be in the most command of the room.
I had a friend, years, it's not in business, she was in business many years, had a bookstore, and she said the register should be clearly seen, that when people come in, they know you're there for business, for making money.
Yes.
And I think we're probably halfway through the show now, and you do have a picture of what you've done for a commercial project. So we'd like to look at that now so you can tell us about it. Is it one picture for commercial, or?
It's one store. Yeah, it's just one store.
Picture.
I think we have a couple pictures.
Okay.
This was a store for a jewelry line called Satya Jewelry. They do spiritually inspired jewelry, so it was really really great for me to work with them because I love their jewelry, and they use they include spirituality, and they look at the meanings of gemstones and symbols and include that into their designs. So it's women owned. It was a really great company to work with, and this is their flagship store in the Time Warner Center in Manhattan.
Now, am I inside the store or looking at the store from the outside?
You're looking at the store from the outside, and that's the storefront. And then this is the interior of the store, and we used natural teak for the displays. And you can't see it there, but there's like a Buddha. One of the owners has collected lots of Buddha heads and things like that, and we incorporated that into the space. And see the cash wrap there under the sign. It is in line with the door, which is a little bit of a no-no. You don't want to be right in line with the door, but we placed that the display that's in the middle there helps stop the energy from rushing in right to the cash wrap, but then the energy can flow around it. And then that's a view of the storefront from the outside, and there's lots of different elements there. The lights and the TV represent fire energy. And then we have reverse stones. That's water energy because it's black.
Oh, I see, right near the window there. Okay. Now, those are display cases or chairs?
Those are display cases for the jewelry. Yeah, I think there's just 3 pictures.
Uh-huh. Now, how long did it take you to design that for
This
them?
was a really fast project. It's very small. It's under, I think it was 300 square feet. So
okay.
very, very small. So we started in August, and they opened in November, mid-November. So it was very fast, but
About 3 months. Very, very interesting. Now, when you do a project like that, where do they pick out like their display pieces, or did you help them with that, like the shape, the color?
in this case, the owners worked with a branding company to work on the displays, but it depends. It depends on the client. Some clients, I don't do a lot of retail, but I do more office spaces, and it depends on the situation how much they want you to design. So, and then that's the difference between if I'm doing architecture or feng shui. Most of the time, I'm including feng shui in the beginning of an architecture project.
Which would mean that, have you actually worked on projects where you did a building?
I have in San Francisco. And at that time, I did not know about feng shui then. But I actually, my company is now, we're actually bidding on a big condo right now, a 20-unit condo. So hopefully we'll be able to include the feng shui into that design if we get that project.
Oh, that sounds exciting. Then you became an architect first.
Yes.
You said you graduated from Berkeley in California. How did you become interested in feng shui?
Well, it's so funny because I studied at Berkeley, and Berkeley's pretty liberal, right?
Yes.
And then I worked in San Francisco, and I was working in commercial interiors, so doing a lot of office spaces, and it was my first job, so I realized how important it was to work with people in their office spaces because they spend so much time there. So when I moved to New York, I think I got more liberal when I moved to New York because the Bay Area is so nice, and there's so much nature around you, and you don't have that so much in Manhattan. So I think I started leaning towards being more Californian when I moved to New York, because when I was in California, I was more New York. I was
Just the opposite?
Yeah, I was too fast for California, maybe a little on the mellow side for New York. So I actually, at some point, I'd lived here for a few years, and I realized that I needed to incorporate more spirituality in my life, so I started to take meditation classes and go to yoga classes. And I wanted to really be able to incorporate some spirituality and some meaning into my work. And actually at the yoga studio that I went to, they had yantras up. So, and I love making art too, and yantras are very geometric and very, very precise, like having drafted in college, it was like, I loved it. It's my favorite, like yantras are my favorite thing to do because everything's perfect and a proportion of everything else, and it's very prescribed and very perfect. So, so I think that studying yantras led me to study spirituality, and then I just realized, what, I'm going to try feng shui and see what happens, and I ended up taking a 3-year certification program.
Ooh, yes. You're really knowledgeable.
Yes, okay. It was a really great program, and it just goes hand in hand with everything I do, and I feel so fortunate that I feel like I'm exactly where I should be in my career path, and and I'm very lucky that everything I do, everything I study, everything I do for fun or for work is all the same. Like I study feng shui, and I study crystals, and I study sacred art, and I study sacred geometry, and I study architecture, and it all gets utilized in my work, so it's great.
Well, we were speaking because this was commercial. I don't think that you've worked on these things, but my mind is always going too. And I thought, with schools, I doubt very much if they're designed for feng shui, or prisons, they should be houses of correction. And then you're talking about healing, and even hospitals, although now with some of the hospitals I see the new additions are circular, so I don't know who's designing them, but they're beginning to look quite beautiful in some ways. Maybe not in Manhattan, but around here they are. Do you have any ideas? Maybe you never thought about this.
Well, I haven't personally worked on like hospitality, but actually there's this great book I've been reading called Healing Spaces. And they take it from a scientific perspective. They don't talk about feng shui, but they talk about how, they've done studies where in hospital rooms, like they have patients with that have undergone the same surgery and are undergoing the same recovery treatment. And they're put in rooms with a view of a brick wall versus a view of nature or trees. And of course, the ones with the view of nature trees need less pain, they need less medication, and they recover much faster. And so I hope that people in hospitality designers are starting to incorporate those things into their designs. And this book also talks about, different colors as well, because different colors are, the light waves for different colors are longer and they're different lengths. And so they affect your eyes differently when you receive those light waves in your eyes. So it affects your stress levels. Like blue is much more calming, which goes along with feng shui principles where the color of blue is wood and it's very calming and healing. Whereas red, like I'm wearing today, is very, very fire energy, very passionate, very like yang energy, very outward and active.
So if in a school then, if they would use these principles, if they had emotionally disturbed children, I would think a room painted blue would be much better than one red, although they're usually like 3 or 4 colors to choose from. I know because I'm a retired teacher. But I do remember that somewhere I had read that yellow was supposed to be good for the intellect. So I know sometimes if we'd be lucky enough to get our room painted, we could ask, and I asked to have my room painted yellow, but I think they made a mistake and made it green.
Oh, well, green's very relaxing.
Yes.
And also, I think with schools, it's very important to put the teacher in the command position that we talked about. So the kids are not in control, but the teacher is. So the teacher is not in line with the door, but the teacher is in the place where they can see the expanse of the room, their back is protected, and they can see the whole room and the door not in line with the door, whereas the kids then recognize that they're not in command.
That I did read, and I did have my desk in the corner against the wall, not the window, and I could see both. There was an exit door to a courtyard and one coming in.
Yes, and then the command position is also very effective for things like interviews too. If you want to, or if you're working with a client, maybe you want them to feel more in command, so you give them the command position. Or if you're interviewing someone, maybe you want to be the one sitting in command when you interview someone. So you could think about the psychological dynamics of where you locate yourself.
But if 2 people know the same thing and are looking for the same space,
it depends. Yeah,
right,
so you have to, because not everyone can be in command too.
Right. Do you think you'll ever work on something that would be, you're doing the condos, do you think you would ever get into something that would be a little bit different, or it's just what comes up?
I hope so. I just see what the way that I work is generally I wait for the universe to present things to me, and there might be things that I want to do. Like actually when I was working on Satya Joy, before I got the project, the same day that the project was presented to me, I'd actually written down that I wanted to work with Satya Jewelry because I love their jewelry. I've been wearing their jewelry for years. And I just wrote it down on a whim that I wanted to partner with them. And I was thinking more like maybe I would host a feng shui class for them. I had no idea that I would be doing their architecture. And then just a few hours later, it manifested itself. So I put out things into the universe that I maybe want. And then I just wait for a nod from the universe, and if it nods and gives it back to me, then I know it's for me to proceed. So there's definitely in the future I'd like to do more work for more pro bono work for nonprofits, and work with like there's a place that I do meditation at, and they're moving, and so I hope I'll be able to help them with their new space as well. And I'm open to learn, like working with all different types of, businesses and incorporated Feng Shui.
That's very interesting, though, within a few hours that...
Yes. Well, I went back, so I wrote it down, I went back to my desk, and then there was a message that popped up, a chat message that had been up, and my friend said, oh, I have a friend that needs an architect, can I put you in touch? I said, of course. So then I was sending emails back and forth with this person, and then she sends me these pictures, and it's like Satya Joy. I was like, oh my gosh, I had just heard.
It was the specific one that you
Yes,
wanted.
it was the one that I wanted.
Yeah. Now, you said also, we have about 2 minutes left,
Mm-hmm.
when people open a business or buy a home, that it's not just the Feng Shui, but the intention that they have. Like
Yes.
sometimes, I used to think I was much clearer in what I wanted. Now, I feel that I'm not so clear in what I want. I don't know why.
Mm-hmm.
Like to
Well-
set an intention, it's not always as simple as it sounds.
No, it's not. I mean, I think I've been very fortunate that I knew, like for instance, when I went to college, I knew what I wanted to do. Architecture, I studied architecture in college, and I've been on the same path for 15 years now. And I think that's pretty rare. Although I've included green design and Feng Shui, it's all supporting what I want to do. And I've, narrowed it down more. I think that, I think people really need to look at like what it is they want to do and then find a way to manifest it. But having a clear intention maybe about the outcome and letting the universe figure out how you get there.
And we only have like 30 seconds left.
Okay.
You mentioned green living. That's something else that you work with?
Yes, absolutely. I'm very passionate about that. I have a lot of information about that on my website.
Also, it'd be another show we could do.
Yes, definitely.
It's not just looking at nature, I take it.
No, incorporating more green lifestyle tips into your home life.
Yes. And again, I'm so happy to talk to you. Just interviewing you, I've learned a lot about myself. It's been a little bit different. Normally you just interview someone, you find out about them, but I found it very informative. I hope our audience also has found it very informative. And if Angie spent 3 years studying it, I'm sure there's a lot more we can find out about it. Thank you very much for watching.